Vice President Kamala Harris accepting the Democratic Party's nomination for President of the United States. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done. Guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. Nicole.
The speech did so many things, and I think there was some incorrect analysis out there that she somehow had to pass a commander-in-chief test. She's the sitting vice president. The Wall Street Journal reported on her vital role in helping with that hostage release. Big effort from the Biden-Harris administration. I think what she did tonight was disqualify Donald Trump from ever being the country's commander-in-chief. She said this: fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important election in our lives, it's the most important in the life of our nation. And you take her speech and you take some of these lines from former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, who said every president since World War II, Republican and Democrat, has shared the belief that America must protect democracy in the world. Every president has honored our veterans' sacrifices, every president but one. And you add Adam Kinzinger and Congressman Ruben Gallego, and their indictments of Donald Trump's disrespect and disregard for members of the military, especially those who have been injured or died in service to the country. They were scathing. They were elevated on this biggest stage in American politics. And I think they closed the door in the minds of anyone watching on Donald Trump ever passing the commander-in-chief test again.
When she said, as commander-in-chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families. I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice. That is something that should not be an applause line in any speech. It should be an axiom. And yet the room erupted at that moment because of the contrast that she is drawing just by saying that with Donald Trump.
Well, count me among the unsurprised. My experience listening to Kamala Harris began when tonight's host of the convention, Kerry Washington, said to me, would you like to meet the female Obama? This was in 2009, in the first months of the Obama presidency. And we went along with Reggie Hudlin, who has produced some of the films that are in this convention, to a Century City law firm, about, 20 people, listening to the San Francisco district attorney. And it's one of those moments that it's clearly a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I was sitting there realizing I am seeing the first black woman president, no question about it. And what I saw that day was what she summarized when she said what we stand for toward the end of the speech. She said what we stand for: freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness. That was all in that room that day with about 20 people listening to her, along with her strength, her wisdom, and an ability that is describable as nothing other than star power. It's a Hollywood phrase, but it's a real thing every once in a while, where there's someone who just, has all the resume stuff, and then there's this other thing, and it's that star power. And so what I have seen when people have thought she's not as good as they expect her to be, what I was seeing was she's not in the right spot. She doesn't have her footing in a way as vice president that you get to have now as a presidential candidate. This is the person who I saw the first time I heard her speak.
Let's go to Jacob Soboroff on the floor in Chicago, presumably buried under balloons, but let's see. Jacob.
Pretty close, Rachel. Pretty close. The message from my vantage point, which is a pretty close one, could not have been any clearer. A harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us.
Yes.
Kamala Harris for the people versus the only client Donald Trump has ever had is himself. And it's pretty amazing. This is what Kamala Harris and her family are seeing right now. Take a look. And then take a look back this way. I just want to give you a look as they start to walk off the stage. Look at the Secret Service agent, by the way, literally buried in balloons. It couldn't be a more different atmosphere than we had about a month ago at the Republican convention just down Lake Michigan. It's an ecstatic environment in here. That is one very big, happy family on that stage, you guys.
Alex and Joy are there on the convention floor. What are you seeing? What has this been like?
Welcome to the balloonery.
Yeah, we got some.
We got balloons, man.
We got it. We got into it. They got into the space.
How was the speech in the room? How was it?
Big. Can I say, like, you guys can see the flags in New York, but the amount, we've talked a lot over the course of the last couple of days about how Democrats are trying to reclaim patriotism, and I really feel like it culminated in this night. I mean, there are these gigantic flags. There's the Chicks singing the Star Spangled Banner. There's this thesis that I think came into sort of full flower tonight with Kamala Harris making the argument that the true strength, the true integrity, the true patriotism lies in the Democratic Party. And they have opened the flaps of the tent to encompass Republicans, to encompass doubters, to encompass people that felt culturally divorced from the party for decades. And here we have, I think, one of the broadest, deepest, most diverse coalitions I've ever seen. Yeah. All of them marching under the Stars and Stripes. It's really something else. This is a Democratic convention.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think listening to that speech, I was actually especially glad, even gladder than I was when I got down here, that I was here with this lady.
Yes, Mother.
Because, you know, America is, if anything, it is a magnet. It is a magnet that no matter where you are in the world, whether you're in the Congo or in Guyana, this is a lady whose mom came all the way from Asia, all the way
from Burma.
From Burma.
Southeast Asia, where Burma was once part of the, British India.
Yeah.
Where Kamala's mother was from herself, and you, Joy.
We're literally like the physical, embodiment of the ingredients that made Kamala Harris. And I love that we experience this together. Because what that magnet, the thing that draws people like my parents who came from very distant continents too, from Africa and from and from Guyana, is this idea that once you come here, what you make, what you create with the family that you develop, you make Americans.
Yep.
We are an embodiment of that, and Kamala Harris literally is. When I look on that stage and I see her family that are brown and that are black and that are this mix, this amazing admixture, and you look at Tim Walz's family, that is also part of the magnet. It's people from the Midwest and the Rust Belt and from California and from anywhere. But no matter where you're from, whether you're Adam Kinzinger or Nancy Pelosi, you are America.
Yeah, and you're also part of the Democratic Party.
And apparently you're part of the Democratic Party.
Or at least you're voting for Kamala Harris.
Right, and the bottom line is what the Democratic Party has achieved is they've actually figured out a way to be an embodiment as a party of what America is supposed to be. Well done, and I think that she's embodied that tonight. Her speech gave that. She said, everywhere I go, everywhere I meet, I see a nation ready to move forward.
I know our moms, wherever they are very happy.
Down.
I know my Asian mom, your mother are very happy, not just that Kamala Harris is the nominee, but that we get to be at this special place together.
Absolutely. I picture in my mind that Philomena and Shamala are literally dancing it out right now because her mom reminds me a lot of my mom.
Yeah.
A lot. Even the food is similar because the Indians and the Guyanese, they both like the curry and the roti and thing.
And the Burmese and the Indians. We could do a whole nother segment.
We're going to do a food segment next, guys. Stop us before we go on about food.
No, actually, I'm here for it, so it's fine. I've been trying to get everybody to eat jerky here the whole night, and it's not going well. So if you guys can bring something better into the mix, that'd be good. Let me ask you about one line in Vice President Harris's speech. I just want to get your take on how it resonated in the room. For us, watching this mediated through television, it seemed like it was almost a gasp and a big response from the room. She said, as part of his agenda, talking about Trump, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress, and get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions. Simply put, she said, they are out of their minds. And it felt from here like there was an eruption at that moment. But what was it like in Chicago?
Yeah, it definitely caused a collective gasp in this arena. It was a piece of information that I don't think that I had really heard in that specificity before.
Yeah.
We've heard sort of, and there's been a lot of Project 2025 talk.
A lot, but not with that specificity. And they have woven reproductive choice through every, I would say, hour of this convention. But this was the first time where Kamala Harris put some detail on it in that way. And I think much like, many people watching at home, a lot of the audience in here had no idea that that is the kind of draconian level Orwellian policy that is being proposed by a future Trump administration.
Well, and I'll throw in that in addition to really focusing on, it's interesting. Women were so present in this convention in a way they were absent in many ways in the Republican National Convention because they were really trying to avoid the whole abortion conversation. But it isn't just on reproductive rights. The idea of mom, of mommy, of motherliness really has been woven throughout this campaign. Through this convention, whether it was Michelle Obama talking about losing her mom, and whether it was any of the many women who are talking about the choice to be a mom, having to be your own choice, the choice on how to create families, and the way they've described family and mothers, I think has been very unique and interesting, as well as the way they've defined manhood and masculinity. It's a really modern sort of conception of the family. I still can't get over Tim Walz's son. I'm sorry. I literally just, that moment I think is still sticking with so many people. But between that moment and this night of hearing Kamala Harris and her sister Maya talk about their mom, I definitely feel like this was an embrace of motherhood by choice. And motherhood, whether it is a stepmom or whether it's a blended family, but I feel like that was another sort of sub-theme in this.
There are a lot of kids who have been on stage tonight, whether stepchildren, nieces, goddaughters, little kids, older kids, big kids, the idea of sort of generational inheritance and not just what kind of choice you have in terms of having children or not, but what kind of world you are leaving those children. Has been I think almost a subtext of the proceedings here tonight.
Well, that and the fact that all of the families you've seen here are so warm and loving and tactile and very different from what you saw at the RNC, where it felt more sort of clinical and sort of quasi.
That's being generous, I would say. I'm not sure that I would call what I saw a family, I mean, they have the same last name, but there's a lot of distance between the members.
It felt cold and it felt angry and it felt, that convention felt like constantly just talking about threat and talking about Democrats as a threat and sort of anger and, kick out all the immigrants and deport them all now. This convention felt like a party, a family reunion. And the family reunion has then led to balloons, many
100,000 balloons, like all family reunions.
I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump. They are rooting, she then reiterated, they are rooting for Trump. They are rooting for Trump because they know he is easy to manipulate with flattery and favors. They know Trump won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat. I have to say, that little piece of analysis is something that almost never gets articulated that way. Instead, it gets described as something that's unbecoming or un-American seeming or puzzling. It is to have her spell it out is because he wants to be an autocrat. Then she says the line that you singled out, Lawrence. As president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand. I know where I stand and where the United States of America belongs. Saying we as Americans have inherited a global responsibility to be on the side of democracy and against tyranny, and we have been taken out of that position by this former president who is trying to put us back on the side of autocrats. I will never do that, and I will put us back where we belong as Americans, and if that's where any American in the sound of my voice believes we ought to be, then you're with me. And that's just
why Leon Panetta said we have no choice. He laid that out, and just to draw a contrast tonight, what was Donald Trump doing? He was social media posting, "Where's Hunter?" And no, Tim Walz wasn't coach. He was assistant coach. Okay? Well, and that's funny.
You got him, buddy.
Right? It's devastating when you look at that. So people would say, was this speech perfect? Look at who she's running against, right? Darkness and fear, optimism and light. And that's what she offered tonight. Not just optimism and light, but real policy and vision for the country.
I really loved, just on that point that you just made, Rachel, I really love the line about the greatest privilege being an American. Because I think there's something really subtle and nuanced and smart about that. It is full-throatedly patriotic. I believe that 100%. But it also comes with, like, the notion of, the people have attacked this sort of liberal notion of privilege. But, like, it is a great privilege to be an American. It's the greatest privilege. We all won the natural lottery. People come from across the earth to be here. And to put it in those terms is at once patriotic and also progressive in the way, because it forces you to recognize the fact that we all who have been born here have been handed this thing that we have something to do with. And I loved that.
To uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth,
Yes.
the privilege and pride of being an American.
I mean, at a strategic level, I think that she soared into this role where a lot of people watching get that she's already doing all these things, and that at a national security level, she's the safe bet. She honors our alliances, and it really is. There's some serendipity, right, that she had this large role, that she is the one who went over and met with Zelensky, that she is the one that even the Wall Street Journal is reporting was instrumental in this hostage release and prisoner swap. But it's sort of to Lawrence's point. She was already ready to do the job. She told the whole country she's doing it. I think the other strategic piece that she sort of closed the door on is pushing Trump way out of the mainstream. And Kinzinger helped, and Panetta helped, and that stage full of gorgeous veterans, Gallego. I mean, I really keep going back, because I have to say, we kind of looked at the rundown and we were like, how do these pieces fit together? Well, what are they? And you look at it after her speech, and they were pushing him out of the mainstream of U.S. foreign policy, the mainstream of any past commander-in-chief that has ever held that office in the history of the country, not just a Republican that's out of the mainstream, but any person who's ever had the privilege of being the commander-in-chief. He's so far out of the mainstream of his own. And then Kinzinger comes in and pushes him way out of the mainstream of his own party and said the only patriotic thing to do is to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
But Nicole,
Rachel, the quotes you've been reading, the language you've been reading is so beautifully simple. There's not a high school kid in America who wouldn't understand every single thing she said. And I've never heard a Democratic speech in this setting that is as simple as that. There's always something that gets a little bit jargony, a little bit into, you got to know two more things about the federal government to understand that sentence. It's the clarity of it, and then her delivery of it, just absolutely flawless, making it even more clear. She said repeatedly, "Let me be clear." And afterwards, she was clear. And when you think about Donald Trump, who gets questions by reporters and never answers the questions and has never been clear about a single issue ever, except his desire to raise taxes on everyone through tariffs, that guy who's never clear. There she was, being flawlessly clear all the way through on every policy that she was describing.
But the clearest thing was her assignment, because she ends by telling America, let's get out there and fight for it. And what you said, Nicole, that, we know that she's already doing all this. What we needed in these 4 days was the reminder that she is, because people often forget what she's doing. People don't think about the VP. So over these last 4 days, we're reminded all the places she's been, all the things she's done, and people will say, we want this and more, and they're saying, what in the world is Donald Trump doing? Because he hasn't articulated any clear mission or message.
Yeah, and Chris, thank you for...
I'll do my second sports analogy in my entire career at this desk. I think we're seeing the backup quarterback becoming the starting quarterback. And when you're the backup quarterback and you run 3 plays a game, or we don't really know what you can do, but you're an NFL quarterback, right? So maybe, and now here she is. She's the starting quarterback. That's the way she can play.
Chris, I want to thank you also for the reminder about what the parallel speech was at the RNC. I mean, I had blocked it out, but he did go on for 90 whatever minutes just talking about like Hannibal Lecter and sharks or what. I mean, it wasn't sharks that night, but just the random riffing on stuff that popped into his mind in the moment while people drifted out of the room. I mean, contrast that with what we just saw.
But that's why Jacob said, right? I was at the RNC, and when Jacob was saying this was a totally different ending, I was thinking, what is he talking about? There was a lot of celebration, but not at the end. Because at the end of the RNC, people had they were exhausted, and those last 15 minutes, people were kind of backing up, like, is he going to notice I'm leaving? So when those balloons came down,
it was like
people were like, I'm out of here. The celebration was in the Hulk Hogan hour, not in the Donald Trump hour.
All right, you will remember where you were when you heard this speech tonight from the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, really introducing herself to the nation, speaking as much to Republicans and independents as she was to the Democrats who were nominating her tonight, asking Americans to remember how great their country is and to fight for its values. You're going to remember where you were on this night. This is an inflection point in history. Ari, we haven't asked you yet what you thought of the speech. What was your take?
For years, we've known her as the vice president.
Yep.
Tonight, America got to meet her for the role she's actually played most of her career, as she said, representing the people. It was a home run of a speech, and what we heard was her give the opening statement.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, that's what she did. Here's who I am. Here's where I come from. That's my opening of my values and who I am. Then she made the case, and she made it, as some of our experts also said, more directly, more bluntly against Donald Trump than we've heard throughout this inclusive and joyous convention. And I think she needed to do that because that's what candidates do. And so for all the joy, she hit him hard. Note legally, she spoke about January 6th, democracy, fraud. She also made a point to say something that's legally true, that he has been found legally liable for sexual abuse. That is something that fewer people have said from the main stage. That, again, is the Kamala Harris we know from being the tough prosecutor. She's the right person to say it. And then third, we got the closing argument. And that broadened back out to, we can do this together. I'm proud to be American. We're not going back, which we've heard before. And so we got in each of those chapters what you would get from her in the courtroom, and she's good at it.
Steph, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just say one other point is that if you have heard her before and you follow the some speeches she's been giving, some of it sounded familiar. But this had to be done in this way because most people at home are not watching as closely as we are. They have not heard her. And so there was stuff that harkened back to things that I had heard her say when I worked for her in the vice president's office, things that she said in her first presidential campaign, things that if you go and you look up speeches and things that she'd given in the United States Senate, like this was a speech that pulled from every single piece of her career, all of the paths that she had walked up until this moment. And I will say, she also wasn't wearing white. There were lots of folks that were wearing white tonight. When I was down there at the convention, they talked about wearing white and Fannie Lou Hamer, this moment, the history. Vice President Harris is somebody that is not enamored with the history that she could potentially make. She's been the first in many of the things that she's done throughout her career. To me, her choice of what to wear today also said that I am about my business and that there's still work that needs to be done. And we're going to wear the white if we win.
What's interesting, when you look at the whole speech, it's like as she goes through it, she responds to her critics, right? So when you're hearing her background, and to your point, people could say, well, I heard that. What are you going to do? She then walks you through national security, foreign policy. And then when she's taking you back to January 6th, the critic who's saying, well, that's history, then she takes you forward and says, we will be guided by optimism and faith, and we're going to fight for it. So those people are leaving the room with an assignment of what they're going to do next, as opposed to the RNC. The RNC was basically like an inauguration celebration. Okay? Totally. They were like, we won this, we got this, let's go home, we're in charge now. People didn't leave the RNC with an assignment. They left the RNC like, well, we got it now. Everyone who's watched or participated, my phone is filled with people tonight saying, I am charged up, let's go do this thing. And we heard this assignment from Michelle Obama, from Oprah Winfrey, and from Vice President Harris tonight, and that's where they appear to be going.
The
for the
number
next
of people
70 days.
looping back to Michelle Obama's speech saying, do something. As Michelle Obama said, do something, do something. That's not the tagline they intended for the convention, but it landed. That speech was such a knockout, and it landed as her in sort of insistent call and response moment in that speech. That actually is a great thing for people to be able to take away with them as they go home.
I also just to linger on what you just said, Simone, I think it's pretty wild to think about, right? We saw the way that Barack Obama extremely deftly navigated, I mean, at a level that will be written about for 100 years hence, right, about the politics of race and becoming the first black man to be president of the United States. Even the line, like, they said it couldn't be done. It's like, well, what's it? What is right? But he never says it. He just says, they said it couldn't be done. It's like, okay, we get it. There was nothing in the speech tonight. If I'm not mistaken, nothing.
It's very
not one word, not one allusion, not a hint, not anything about the epic history that would be made by Kamala Harris being the president of the United States. Not a wisp of it. And
very smart.
Even more than Obama, who was much more wink, wink, nudge, nudge about it. That they, this was like about my business. This was like none of it.
But this was, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I heard you saying is, yeah, everybody can wear white. That's
Everyone
fine.
knows it,
Everybody
right?
can talk about what this means for history and looking back and everything. But the way we're going to make history here is by me becoming president.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you I can be president by the fact that I basically already am president in some ways. I am vice president. I'm doing the work. This is what a president looks like. I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you to imagine because I'm already living it and doing this
Rachel
job.
is my translator.
Yes. Okay.
That's great. That is it. That is exactly it. I mean, let's just put a finer point on it. For this current Republican Party apparatus, the culture wars are not just a distraction. They are the playbook.
That's it.
And so Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they would love nothing more than for the vice president to stand on that stage and say, elect me because you will make history.
Right.
Yeah.
She's not saying that. She's saying, elect me for all of these other reasons.
Right.
Elect me because I'm decent, because I'll fight for you, because I know what needs to be done, because I respect America. She's essentially saying, elect me because I am a patriot and the other guy is not.
Yes,
and
that's exactly
what's
right.
giving people the chills.
Yes.
Because we're not having this outward you go girl moment, but all of a sudden when we least expect it, we're looking and saying, oh my gosh, our sons and daughters might live in an America where the president before them is a woman, is a black woman.
And where
no
the way she got
it.
into the office is by putting an end to the political career of Donald Trump, who was the worst president in American history and who tried to overturn American democracy. And there is a person who ended it, and her name is Kamala Harris.
Georgia senator and senior pastor at the Ebenezer Baptist Church. You have to say it like that.
That's how you say it.
The Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock. How are you?
Great to be here with you.
I have to share a moment that we just had that I think is emblematic of what this convention has been like. Adam Kinzinger, former congressman from Illinois, very conservative, who was on the January 6th committee. He just happened to be near us, everybody. I'm just sharing on TV what happens in the real life here. And he walked by, and we both got a chance to talk to him. Right. And really, I just wanted to thank him for being brave enough to step forward.
Being a patriot.
And being a patriot. But, you've been to many conventions.
Yep.
Have you ever seen this many conservative Republicans at one?
No. This is a special gathering. This is a big tent, and there's room for everybody.
Yeah, and your speech was excellent. And I feel like, well, you tell me, what do you think, if you had to give this convention a theme, what would it be?
Freedom, joy, hope.
Yeah.
It's all here.
Yeah.
It's all here. And you feel it. As you move around the convention floor, you feel the excitement that's in the air. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, on the other side of this excitement, it was the sense of dread that many were feeling just a few weeks ago, trying to figure out the way forward. And here we are. The convention has come together. There's unity under this tent. And I think we're all very focused. But even in the midst of this joy, and maybe because I'm pastor of Ebenezer Church and standing on the shoulders of King and so many others, I can't help tonight but think about Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes.
Who 60 years ago this year had to confront this very party, the Democratic Party, with her message. Here's a woman who was from Mississippi. When she got started in the movement, she said she didn't know what a constitution was. Yeah. But she put her boots on, got engaged in a kind of activism, said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And her voice was so powerful and poignant that the sitting Democratic president at the time found a way, a clever way to get her off the TV. Yeah. And here we are 60 years later, and a black woman, an Asian woman, a woman is the standard bearer for our party. Yeah. And this is one of those ways, one of those moments where it seems that the moral arc that Dr. King used to talk about will bend just a little bit closer to justice tonight.
Yeah. Makes me sad that John Lewis is not here, but I guess he's here in spirit, but he would have been marveled at this. Because I'm glad that you brought up Fannie Lou Hamer, because I think she is one of the great unsung heroes of American history. Everybody should know her name. But also because it's a question about the South. I think there is a sort of conceit inside the Democratic Party that the Democratic Party is a northern and western party. It's a California party, as is the vice president. But the South is awake. You know, North Carolina, Georgia, maybe Florida sometimes, when they want to. What do you think about the Democratic Party's willingness to invest financially in races in the South, having won a very close one in the state of Georgia?
I think you can take my case as an example. We need to lean in the South. Georgia, first of all, is very much in play. And I just want to say for the record, we can win Georgia.
Yeah.
I know a little something about how to win Georgia. We've done it twice there. And so I'm going to lean in.
I think you've run like 5 times.
My name was on the ballot 5 times in less than 3 years.
You've done it 5 times.
I don't get to complain. I acted like I wanted this doggone job, so here I am. But I think we can. I know we can win Georgia. Yeah. But to your point, we've got to lean in some other places. I'm talking about the long term.
Yeah.
Mississippi is a blue state. It just doesn't know it yet.
That's right. It's a suppressed state. I like to describe, Mississippi, Louisiana.
The gerrymandering.
That's right.
It is a highly gerrymandered state.
Absolutely.
And we've got to lean in, put the resources, put our people on the ground.
Yeah.
And we can change the game.
Absolutely. Ari has some questions for you. Ari?
Senator and Senior Pastor Warnock, good to see you.
Good to see you, Ari.
I want to ask you about this history you were just discussing with Joy. For those excited about civil rights progress, and we do mark this barrier falling tonight, as you know, much of the black civil rights movement in America is aligned with or grows out of the church movement. Yourself, Reverend King, who you just cited, Reverend Jackson, who was honored earlier this week, as you know, Reverend Al Sharpton, who speaks tonight, and we should say, disclosure, a colleague of ours. And yet tonight we expect Kamala Harris to speak about that and her parents' involvement in that civil rights movement, but also her work as a prosecutor, which is a less traditional bridge. And so given your work with all this and your knowledge of Vice President Harris, what do you think about that broadening of the civil rights movement? What do you think about what she is likely to do or wants to do tonight in stitching those things together, which actually broadens who can come out of these movements to be potentially a president?
Well, first of all, let me say that I know Kamala Harris's pastor, the Reverend Dr. Amos Brown, a Morehouse man. She's a woman of faith.
Respect.
And that's what's most important. How is it that your faith and your values inform the work that you do? She's worshiped with me in the pews at my church. But let me just say, as someone who does a lot of work in the space around ending mass incarceration, which is something my church has taken on. We've got serious issues. The land of the free, United States of America, the land of the free is still the mass incarceration capital of the world. It's a scar and a scandal on the soul of America. And I have to say something to your viewers that may feel counterintuitive. When it comes to addressing that issue, prosecutors are the tip of the spear. Prosecutors in many ways, in many instances, have as much or more power than the judge. And so someone who comes with her experience, who's worked in these cities, who has ensured that we don't see a disconnect between safety and justice, she will bring all of that experience to the Oval Office. I look forward to engaging her. I know where her heart is. We've all seen it when as a senator, she served on the Judiciary Committee. And I can't wait to see how she will bring all of these skills and experience to bear in the work of government.
Yeah, I was very interested to hear what you have to say on that. That makes sense. And prosecutors, yes, they often initiate this process that we know has so many problems in it. And so you change the composition of that. Maybe you affect some of the problems. My other question for you is something we've touched on, the inclusion here. What do you expect to hear from her tonight, and why is it important? Do you think that the Democrats have repeatedly said everyone's welcome, all groups, all coaches, lapsed Republicans, current Republicans?
Listen, this is what I do on Sunday morning. When we say the doors of the church are open, we mean it. Whosoever will, let him or her come. And look, not only are we saying it, look around this place. We're demonstrating it. Our convention looks so very different from the other convention. Our party looks so different. Our party, our convention, our ticket looks like America. And I'm proud to be a part of it. We've got a long way to go. We've got work to do. And those of us who come from the civil rights and human rights tradition, we're always going to be those who are pushing us to go a little bit closer towards our ideals. But certainly you see the commitment here. And I just want to say to everybody, you know, get on board, get involved. Don't wait to see where this is headed. We are the leaders that we've been looking for. And this is a moral moment in America. And as I said earlier, when I think about Fannie Lou Hamer and the stand she had to take 60 years ago, whatever your party is, tonight we move just a little bit closer to justice, a little bit closer toward our ideals.
And joining me now is Nancy Pelosi. You've worked so hard for this. You only have to switch 5 seats. Well, I guess we lost one congressman from New Jersey.
But that will be a Democratic seat,
so they have to name that by next week. But 5 seats, Hakeem Jeffries, the party unified.
Yes.
We're fully and you're getting a lot of the props for having brought people together and recognized that that change had to be made.
Well, my motto is just win, baby. We just have to win for the American people, for the children, for our democracy. Everything is at stake. I feel very confident under Hakeem's leadership, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar, Ted Lieu, Susan DelBene, that we have the makings, the plan, and the candidates for success to win the House.
What are your expectations for Kamala Harris on her big night after the way Tim Walz brought it all home last night?
Wasn't Tim wonderful? So proud of him, 12 years in the House. Tonight, Kamala will be wonderful. You know what? Because she has so much confidence. She will be herself. She will talk about the issues that are of concern to America's working families. It's wonderful that she's a woman and that she's a woman of color, but people want to know what it means to them in their lives. So if it's child care, if it's home, a family and medical leave, if it's home health care, if it's issues that relate to housing, our economy, lowering cost for America's working families.
In your speech last night, you thanked President Biden for his extraordinary service and the legislative accomplishments, the accomplishments that you were part of, a key part of.
No.
You also said this, though, in your interview with David Remnick for The New Yorker.
Do you think your relationship will be there?
I hope so. I pray so. I cry so.
You worry about it?
I lose sleep on it, yeah. Yeah.
You think he's angry at you? You think he's angry at you?
I don't know. We haven't had a conversation.
It's been very tough. I know this is a friendship that goes back 50 years. He's on vacation, but are there any plans for you to talk?
Well, I hope so. But again, that was then. This is now. We have to go forward and use all of our energy, not reviewing the past, but going forward to win this election. This is not going to be easy. The other side will misrepresent, mischaracterize, and the rest, as they do. They will try to nullify everything that is in place for the peaceful transfer of power. So we just have, as I've said to all the speeches I've been making here to different groups, we've only just begun. This is one good day in front of another. Own the ground in our mobilization, message with unity, not menace, and again, have the money to get the job done. That's all coming in. I say to my colleagues all the time, our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power. So we want to go forth with that unity, with the political skills to get the job done, but most importantly, with the policies that address the needs of America's working families, with our ticket, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
In talking about Donald Trump in your speech last night, you laid the responsibility right at his feet for January 6th, for the assault on the Capitol. And I mean, you were one of the victims. I mean, we all watched the incredible video of the rioters going down the corridor past your office and banging on the door. Where's Nancy? Nancy. That said, I want to get your reaction to what Donald Trump had to say in North Carolina yesterday about their focus on not getting not getting the vote out, but stopping Democrats from cheating. Watch.
Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat, because we have all the votes you need.
So this narrative of his that it's the Democrats who cheat.
Well, I've said this over and over again. Donald Trump is a master of projection. Anything he says, he's talking about himself. We don't even think in terms of cheating. That's not who we are. We're Democrats who believe in the system, and Republicans, by and large, had done that until he came along. So when he says cheat, he's saying, that's what I would do. So therefore, I project and say they would. So we can't, let's say, we don't agonize, we organize. We just go out there and do our job. And, well, one thing I think would be helpful is to have a bigger vote.
1, 2. You've got a unified convention. There's no question that this has been really well done. But you've got 30 uncommitted delegates in Minnesota. They haven't been protesting. They're not outside. They're not making a fuss. All they wanted was a meeting and to have a conversation about an arms embargo. Should the Harris campaign have given them something in order to smooth the way through tonight?
Well, I don't know that they haven't given them anything. When I was in Michigan last Wednesday at the invitation of the governor, some of the people told me that they had some of the...
well, they've had contacts, but they wanted something here at the convention. Yeah. They wanted a role. They wanted some...
I'm not second-guessing this. We're here to talk to the American people. Joe Biden was the leading person to call for humanitarian assistance. What happened is terrible to children. The collateral damage of war should teach us that it is not a civilized way to resolve conflict. There has to be a two-state solution there so that Palestinians can live in a self-determined way and Israelis safely and securely as well. But it can't... we have to defeat a person who is a threat to our democracy of the kind that we have not seen. At the beginning of our country, Thomas Paine said, the times have found us.
5, 6,
declare war, establish a new nation. Abraham Lincoln took up that charge to keep our country together years later, decades later, and now the times have found us to save our democracy. That is what we are here to do. They'll make their decision about the use of their time, resources, and messaging. But one of the things that's sad for me is the Republicans said to me, we're not giving any aid to the humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians. We were the ones fighting for that. Joe Biden is the one fighting for that. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they're not admitting that. They're not asking for the release of the hostages. So it's no use my litigating that debate here. This is Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's convention. They will make their presentation to the American people. This convention is not the end of any discussion. There'll be plenty of time to go.
Before you go.
There are about 4,000 delegates here at the Democratic National Convention, several teenagers among them, and one 95-year-old. Pennsylvania's Angie Gioloretto is a busy woman. She's a committee woman in her hometown. She has been for an astounding 66 years. She's a volunteer for Kamala Harris. She lives alone, she cleans her own house, and yet she still made time to talk to me about life, politics, and her prediction for November.
So first, can I ask how old you are?
95.
And how does it feel to be at yet another convention?
To me, each one has been so exciting. But this one especially, it's for women. It's for everyone. It's something that I can't explain. I feel like the world is opening up to everybody, every color, every creed, and every woman.
Your first convention, I believe, was 1976.
Absolutely.
You have a button, if I can show it, Carter Mondale, 1976. And you've gone to every single
one. And I've enjoyed them all.
Is this the best, though?
I would say so for me at my age, seeing a woman. But I have to say, our president, Joe Biden, was special to me.
You also saw Hillary Clinton here.
Yes. Now, she should have been the president. She was great, and she'll be doing something. Women today are not lackadaisical. They're ambitious. And men, open your eyes, because we are ambitious.
If you had a chance to speak to Kamala Harris, Because you've had a little bit of experience dealing with people over the years. What would be your advice to her?
Go, girl. Go get them. I'm ready to go with you.
If there's one more thing that you haven't done in politics, what might it be?
We do.
Just saying thank you. I just love everyone. I'm happy.
I have a feeling everyone loves you.
Well, I sure in hell hope so.
Finally, let me ask you, what does it feel like to be the oldest delegate?
Truthfully, I feel like, hey, I'm with the crowd. Some 50, some 20, but it's really encouraging to see the youth, the young people come out. And I feel like Grandma Moses.
Honestly, I've done thousands of interviews in my life. She's right up there, one of my favorites. Her prediction, by the way, it's Kamala Harris's time, and she is going to win. And while Angie Gioloretta might have been the oldest delegate in the room, at this DNC, there's been a huge spotlight on the next generation of voters.